Hello all and welcome back. It was a jam-packed weekend, but we are here, we survived, and we have plenty to go over today on the Global Gaming Network channel, the place where we get to deliver you all of the goods when it comes down to esports across the entirety of the world. Call of Duty majors, we got VCT action, League of Legends kicking off, and another major is well on its way for Counter-Strike. We got all of that, plus the news and more. This is Today in Esports. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back after a jam-packed weekend. As always on Today in Esports, my name is Andy. Joined with me is Chris. How was your weekend, man?
It was great. We had a lot of action going on the weekend, everything from Counter-Strike to League of Legends. But let's get back to our roots and go back to COD first. Give us a rundown.
Yeah, as we were talking about, for Call of Duty League, we are now getting prepared for Major 4 that is happening at DreamHack Dallas at the end of this 5-week stint. 5 total qualifiers to be playing, and we only have so much time to go over every single match. So we got one match per day, starting off with the Cloud9 New York, taking on the Vegas Falcons. And this is a new look for Cloud9 New York. They just went through a two-man change. Spark, Capsule, these are names that we have seen in the league before. They're taking on the Vegas Falcons, who had a great Major 3 specifically for the hardpoint. When it comes down to these two teams, in order for champs, if you want to make a run, it starts with the win here. Pretty much you got to go flawless if you are the Vegas Falcons. They are down in the dirt when it comes down to their CDL Pro points. But Cloud9 New York, they're going to start off wonderfully. How about Spark? Wonderful map number 1 out of Chris. He goes 1.35 KD at 31.23. Now they got a 1-0 lead for Cloud9 New York. In towards the dealership, search and destroy. This is a map mode combination that the Vegas Falcons really struggled against other top teams. And well, when you get a team nade, I don't even know what caused this car to explode. And Exit with being the bomb carrier had a really good look at the slidey door inside a secret. He dies, and well, the whole round just kind of devolves soon after. Vegas Falcons only put on a single round win. It was 4 rounds straight until that one round finally came to be, but 5-2 for opening duels. Cloud9 victorious in that. Vegas Falcons didn't even plant a single bomb, and they got outslayed by about 9. So not a real good look for the Vegas Falcons. Capsule went 10-5 for a 2.0 KD. And here's that final round win, just trades galore. It is a slugfest in the middle of the map, dealership search and destroy special, but Cloud9 New York, they just would not relent. You could maybe call it a honeymoon phase, but all 4 of these guys have a lot of time spent playing together. Now with the 2-0 lead for the Vegas Falcons. Can they reverse sweep on a Hacienda control? Doesn't necessarily seem likely whatsoever. So throughout the Hacienda control, oh man, was it ever an absolute cataclysm. Cloud9 New York, Sib specifically, he's taking his ex-teammate Pred hostage. You don't respawn during this moment of time, an insult to injury, even get the assassination. That's min-maxing the amount of time that Pred is not on the map. And then Cloud9 New York were able to take that all the way in towards a couple of segments being captured. I mean, that round 1, Vegas still won. And they went all the way towards a round 5, where Vegas did, of course, have that round 5 defense, but it was a full-on hold. They stopped Vegas dead in their tracks, trading rounds back and forth, but still a 3-0 win is a 3-0 win. Got a shout out there for Kremp, went 70-55. He's surrounded by a couple of new faces, and I gotta say, this is a good look for Cloud9 New York. This is exactly what they need. Maybe a moment too late, but still a start here with a 1-0 for their qualifiers. We might be able to see them start in the winners bracket, something that we haven't seen from Cloud9, I want to say all the way back since Major number 1. But over towards Saturday we go. We have Vancouver Surge. They are now the back-to-back winner, or second place team from back-to-back majors, excuse me, going up against Optic Texas. And Optic Texas, they did not go for a change. They're sticking with their guns, and they're coming in towards Major 4 as the current 8th seed, knowing that they could lose this series and potentially lose out on champs contention. They needed this one to be good, and this map number 1 was all of that plus some more. The Skyline hardpoint was actually Vancouver's pick. This is something that they have been struggling with since Major 2 qualifiers. They're only 2-4. They specifically struggled on this map versus LA Thieves. Probably why they picked it. They want to test it versus Optic Texas, and they thought that they were going to be weak. Nuh-uh, not going to be the case. Shotzzy for 46-31. He's got a couple more kills left to find here towards the end of it until he finally finds 48. But 48 kills, no matter who you are, is crazy. The fact that Optic Texas were able to pull themselves back and almost deny, I want to say, about any more than about 40 points for about the last 5 hardpoints from a very good hardpoint team of Vancouver, I think they're back. I think they might be back, but don't hold your tongue. In towards the search and destroy we go. It was another Hacienda. And Optic Texas, this was their pick. They've been 0-3 through Major 3 qualifiers. They didn't even win a single round versus Boston when they played this at Major 3. So you got to really wonder why they picked it here. But Vancouver are also 0-1 through Major 3 qualifiers. They lost to Carolina Royal Ravens, so a pillow fight maybe, but a slugfest is what we got. This one was definitely a lot of fun. Shotzzy was leading the league in opening duel win percentage through Stage 3 for Search and Destroy, and that was a continuation here. I mean, a big old scoreline to have for themselves. Hook went nuclear, 2.5 OKD of the 10.4. Optic lost the first two. They won 4 straight, lost the next, and then the last 2 rounds they won with relative ease. Very good look coming through for Optic Texas. Now they have themselves a 2-0 lead versus the Vancouver Surge. And albeit Vancouver Surge might be testing some different things, knowing that they've already qualified for champs and knowing that they are still the second best team when it comes to local area network, a loss here only helps Optic's virtues to be able to make it all the way to the World Championship. And on protocol control, this is where it would all come to an unfortunate end. And this is Optic's best control map. It was Vancouver's weakest control map. They need to practice this versus LA Thieves and Atlanta Faze, and Optic let them know you got some more work to be done. Dashy, Skies, they teed off, taking their time between a lot of these different rounds. Optic Texas outslayed Vancouver Surge by 24 eliminations. The damage was through the roofs. Vancouver Surge cannot get a single 3 rolling, where Nasty and Abuza are really good on this map previously. Neptune and 04 did not have space to play. 04 was trying his best, but Bruce was in his bag throughout all of this. Dashy went absolutely AWOL. He dropped a total of 3,500 damage, and that was the most in the entire lobby by a good 600 or so. You only have 100 HP, just to put it in perspective for you, so Dashy was putting in about an extra 7 kills on the map for his team. In Optic Texas, they're gonna take this series versus Vancouver Surge, the number 2, maybe number 3 team in the league right now in a 3-0 fashion, and then made them look silly along the way. Optic Texas, 8th seed, maybe not for much longer, starting off with a good old couple of CDL points. Hook, big shout out to him. He went 76 and 55, and Neptune, of course, trying his best, was not enough for Travis to be able to help Vancouver Surge with that W. So now over towards Sunday. We got a battle of the red teams. Atlanta Faze, they got top 6 at Major 3 after going back-to-back championships from EWC Major 1 and Major 2. They're going up against the Major 3 champions and number 1 seed at the time, the LA Thieves. Let's get on into it. They have not played each other since Major 1 on LAN, where Atlanta won 3-2. And the vetoes were all over the place because we got Rewind back into the mix. Rewind Hardpoint, you go back to Stage 1. LA Thieves were the ones that played it the most, but that almost feels like it was eons ago because Atlanta Faze, they look polished on this. LA Thieves were lost. Ghosty was trying his best to hold down crosses to convey information for Envoy and Hydra to play through DVD and in towards these shops, but it just wasn't enough. Atlanta Faze were running circles around them, specifically for Celium. There's something to be said about when MacArthur plays against LA Thieves, that he is just in his bag, man. He is shooting so straight like he always does, but making good decisions as well. He's just gunning them where they previously stood, and LA Thieves could not trade the poor fella. 250 to 137 would be the final score line at the end of this map 1, and I gotta say, this is definitely a good look for Atlanta Faze to start 1-0 up versus the LA Thieves. 250 at the end will be finally reaching Atlanta Faze. We're going to start off 1-0. Celium dropped 39 kills, only 17 deaths in this map 1. And I guess if you want to wag your finger at anyone, I mean, Simp dropped a .58, but whatever. Everybody else is dropping numbers along the way. Golly, it wasn't even close. Into the map number 2 we go. Dealership, Search and Destroy. And you go back to it. LA Thieves on this map have had really mixed results. 3-2 since it has been introduced. They lost to Miami Heretics in the opening qualifier matchup 4-6. For Atlanta, they're only 1-2 in this map mode combination, but you feel like that this should play in towards their strengths, and boy, did it ever on this map number 2. I mean, it went all the way towards a round number 10, but here are these very normal stats for Atlanta Faze. 7 first bloods to the 3 of LA Thieves. Celium dropped a 1.75, only had 1 of those first bloods, but it was the Tiny Terrors, Simp and Abizi. They dropped a total of 5 first bloods, so the 7 that was found for Atlanta Faze in this map number 2. And now you're up 2-0 versus the number 1 teams numerically in the Call of Duty League. In towards the control we go. Protocol control, look, at the end of the day, LA Thieves, they are the number one control team in the game. And that, we mean that statistically. They have lost the least amount of control teams, or control maps, excuse me, and have the highest differential out of everybody in the league, bar none. But Atlanta Faze, they got their best control map of protocol control. You almost feel like they got something to play for here. Remember, LA Thieves from Major 2, they actually unearthed Atlanta Faze as the number 1 seed, and they definitely let them have it here. Atlanta Faze were shooting. Throughout the entirety of this protocol control, LA Thieves only took a single round. Celium dropped a 1.63 on their foreheads and another respawn. 2,900 damage wasn't even the most in the lobby. That is designated the CEO of Draza. 4K damage for Zach. He was just top trips, top grandmas, just lasering LA Thieves. Scrap was nowhere to be found in this map number 3. Drops a 0.56 for the L in this map number 3. And LA Thieves, they're going to be starting off this qualifier stage 0-2. A map 5 loss to the Heretics. An 0-3 to Atlanta Faze, who now, Faze, by the way, have a 2-0 lead to their start. 72-37 out of Celium. Are you kidding me? He is back in towards the mix, and you know that Atlanta Faze, they're definitely feeling a little salty after losing that chip to potentially get 4 in a row. Major 4 is looking pretty darn good for Atlanta Faze. Draws screaming at the camera as well. You know he's got nothing but love when it comes to Scrappy. They are the bestest of friends. But that is the end as far as the qualifiers are concerned. Here's how everything had shaken up at the end of Major 4 qualifiers for the first week, excuse me. Toronto Ultra, Atlanta Faze, Miami Heretics, they all start 2-0. Optic Texas, though, is the biggest storyline away from this entire weekend. They are 1-0, and because of that, I believe that they fully had stopped all of Vegas from actually qualifying into champs. There are some crazy things that could go down, and we'll break down those permutations going into Thursday, but they just have the overall standings do look after 1 week of qualifier matches. Everybody below Optic Texas, 9th through 12th, starting with Cloud9 New York, Minnesota Rocker, LA Gorilla Mates, and Vegas Falcons, are out of champs contention. We might see some shakeup for the seeds are concerned. Atlanta Faze, they got that number 1 seed back from LA Thieves from the head-to-head win regardless, but from that 8th all the way to maybe about the 4th or maybe even the 5th seed, we could see some craziness when it comes down to the seeding. But all the way from 8th down to 12th, that's where things might get shaken up. That's everything to do with Call of Duty. You want to make sure that you tune back in on Thursdays. We got more qualifier matches to go over.
And what a qualifiers it was. We'll have to see how everything shakes up going into next week. But let's go ahead and take a shift and let's go to the Rift, starting with League of Legends. So LTA North kicked off their 2nd week of the group stage. So let's go ahead and jump into some of those games, starting with Team Liquid versus the Sky's Toast. And well, the Sky's Toast was the only team to take a game off of Liquid, and that was their first win. Could they see success here? Well, Jan had something to say about it. He came out with the vengeance in this game on the Varus, and look at this piercing arrow to get the 3rd kill. I don't know what to say. He turned on something from week 1 to week 2. He didn't like his performance last week, and he came out with a vengeance. He went 12-1-9 on the Varus in this game 1 to make an opening statement saying, you're not going to get a win against us again. Look at this, taking them down, getting those KDAs, padding the stats, getting that first game 23-6. What a win for them. Now, game number 2 was no different. They were saying, we're gonna close this out, and it was all Core and Yeon once again. Legendary on that Kaisa uses the ult to get back. They want more kills. Gonna pick up another triple here onto the Ahri, and what can I say? This is probably the best that Yeon and Core have looked in a while here. They're going and putting on a statement saying that we want to make sure we stay in the top 4, and they are. They are going to finish this series 24-1-15 for Yeon, and then Core is 4-0-38. What a massive kill participation for him. So good job to Team Liquid for picking up that win versus the Sky despite losing to them in the positioning phase. Let's go ahead and switch to our next match, which will be Lyon versus Cloud9. And well, this is probably one of my favorite games of LTA North so far. Lyon looked so good coming into this game 1. They had a plan and they stuck to it. Early game, they were able to pick off Cloud9, got an advantage, and just started winning on the team fights here. Taking down Blabber, they're gonna pick up these 4 kills and then move into the Nexus, taking this game number 1. They look so good. Easy comp, really solid comp with the Ashe, the Braum. They're able to get the picks. Game number 1 goes in their favor, and it looked good. Game 2, they get Ocean Soul, then Elder. That looks like they should be able to win this, but this is where Cloud9 showed their strength. They are a great team fighting team And then they came in here saying, well, if you're gonna tower dive us in their towers, you better put some respect on us right now. They're gonna go ahead and start picking up the shutdowns here, but Lion's still in control. Unfortunately, here's where they're gonna make the mistake. Finally, the Meganar into the MF combo. They're gonna get the kills here. And what happens? They tried to go back in. They want to try to get more. They should have left, but now it is going to be C9 who flipped the script on them. They're going to get the ace here, and well, death timers are at 40 seconds. It's enough for Cloud9 to push down in game number 2 and even up the series 1-1. Now, game number 3. Can Lyon find success? Well, unfortunately not. C9 finally had the momentum, and look at this. Unfortunately, the Nautilus hook brings in Blabber to get that ultimate from Skarner onto Saint. With the Victor going down, they lose so much damage here, and this is where Cloud9 really shine their team fights as a team. They're so strong individually that they are able to pull this back into game number 3, despite going down game 1 and 2, winning that game 2 kind of luckily there. They come into game number 3, they show so much pose, and they're able to get this 2-1 to keep them up there. So great job to Cloud9 for winning that. Lyon looked really good, but unfortunately they're going to fall just short of getting that win versus Cloud9, which could have possibly put them into the second place spot, but they still have a week to go left. So let's take a look at the current matchups listing from that week here. So the rest of the games, we did have FlyQuest versus Shopify Rebellion. We would have FlyQuest winning that 2-1, and then of course Liquid winning 2-0 versus Sky's Toast. Then on Sunday, we also had 100 Thieves versus Dignitas. 100 Thieves picking up that 2-0 win over Cloud, and then Cloud9 picking up the 2-1 win over Lyon. Now let's look at the overall standings after the second week of the group stages. And looking at the standings from the group phase, again, we have Team Liquid is going to be above Cloud9 since they have 2-0 both of their games. Cloud9 is going to be 2-0 as well, but they did drop one map. Lyon and Sky's Toast both looking for wins in the group stage. On the opposite end, FlyQuest sitting pretty in that first spot. Team Liquid are Shopify Rebellion, 100 Thieves, and Dignitas in the bottom there. We'll have to see who can get that second place spot in Group B. So when they move into week 7, to see what they do for playoff seeding and who's going to go into those elimination matches. But we still have some more League of Legends content coming up. We have to go across the pond over to Europe to see how LEC is stacking up. Going into our first game here, we're going to take a look at KC versus Rogue. Both of them did not play in Madrid, so they are back on the Rift here waiting for their game. And Carmine Corp, well, first place team coming out just swinging. They didn't get the play, so they're showing off here a little bit. They did go down a little bit against Rogue in the first half, but they're no shy away from knowing how to close out games once they get there. Great job by them. They're going to be able to pick up this first win here again, getting this last couple of kills, and then taking down the Nexus. They looked really good coming off of that weak break, and Rogue, unfortunately, has a lot of catching up to do. They need to win the series if they want to stay in playoff contention, but again, you're going up against the best team in Europe right now. There it is. Look at this amazing team fight by them. They're just able to pick up so many kills of Vladdy on that Akali. It's just such a menace. You can't get past it when she is dashing all over the place. They're going to pick up this last kill on the York here before they look to get the momentum to swing it to picking up the second game. Here they are. KC doing such a great job staying at the top of the table as well, but Rogue getting defeated here, unfortunately, will be eliminated from playoff contention. So they had their last game of the split and the last one until about August, so they're going to be sitting on the bench for a little while now after their week 7 match. But let's go ahead and jump into the second match of the day, which would be G2, and we'll see if they can get a win after a pretty disappointing Madrid showing. So they did lose both their games in Madrid. They would come back with the Vengeance versus Vitality. Both are 3-3, but it did not look that way when we were watching the game. G2 trying to show that they are a top 4 team or even possibly a top 2 team here, came out swinging, and well, they left no room for Vitality to breathe in this first game, only dropping 2 kills. They just came out and they were like, well, we're not a bottom 4 team. We're not a mid of the pack team. We are a top 4 team and possibly even a top 2 team here. So they're going to get that first win, and then they come into the second game again. No room for Vitality to breathe at all. This did not look like a 3 versus 3 team show off. It looked more of like a top 2 versus a bottom 4, and that's exactly what we're expecting to see coming out. G2 here, they're going to be able to pick up this win here, a great 2-0 for them after that disappointing Madrid, as I said before. Unfortunately dropped both of the games there, but they're looking to get back on the winning track here. Of course, they want to get the best possible playoff seedings in the next couple of weeks, so they're going to take this 2-0 win versus Vitality, and it allows them to move up in the standings once again. So let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the matches that we have, which will be played later today, as again, LAC is played on Mondays. So looking at Saturday and Sunday's matches, we did also have Fnatic versus BDS. Fnatic would pick up that win 2-0, and then Giant X versus BDS. Giant X would pick up that win 2-0 as well. Now let's go into the current standings. Carmine Corp Fnatic have punched their way to the playoffs, and again, Rogue has been eliminated. The rest of the teams will be positioning or playing for positioning in the rest of the weeks. We still have the matches today, as well as next week, which we'll have our LAC road trip to Paris, where we'll see Koi hosting the event. So that was all for League of Legends this week, but let's go ahead and move on, and we have a lot more games to go over.
Yeah, we sure do. Sticking in the same sphere, of course, with Riot as far as an IP is concerned, but talking about their tactical FPS, we're going in towards Valorant. Of course, VCT Americas has now concluded from this past weekend, and now we know who our top 3 teams from the Americas will end up being. We do have G2 Sentinels and MIBR. They will be your top 3 teams, but here's how it all went down. G2 eliminated Evil Geniuses in a crazy lower semifinal matchup. The vetoes were insane throughout all of this, and these 2 teams have not faced each other realistically since January. It's been such a long time. Metas have shifted. Maps are different. This one was an absolute barn burner. Lotus for EG in their first map pick was an interesting one. 100 Thieves, Sentinels, Cloud9, all banned from what NRG did on the international stage. 13-5 versus T1, 13-8 versus EDG, and a 13-7 versus TL. Keep in mind you, that was a whole meta ago at Masters Bangkok, but still respect is certainly earned. The composition as well, as far as a choice, I love this pick from Ye. I love seeing Ye on the cloak. Ye is but a humble duelist stuck in a controller's body. He was winning so many different duels for no reason whatsoever. It was constantly putting EG in clutch situations. Nature was also doing the same thing. Icy was the same. It's a 1-0 lead now for Evil Geniuses. In towards the split we go for G2 Esports, and well, for G2, they picked this versus 100 Thieves and they lost to that Sage composition, but they did beat Sentinels. EG, they do have a 13-11 win versus Loud. They picked it versus MIBR in the kickoffs, and they lost 3-13, but that was so long ago. You look at these compositions as far as the differences are concerned, of course, it's going to be Icy and Jogma. I mean, Jogma on split, playing that patented Yoru, is definitely something to behold for yourself. But the Astra on the opposite side with the Cosmic Divide could cause a certain amount of issues, and it started to. It was a great start for EG, but an even better resurgence coming through for G2, specifically on the offensive side. They're going to take the map number 2, and towards the map number 3 we go for a Pearl. And here's the thing about G2 on Pearl. Ever since January, they played it 8 times. They are 6-2. This was map 3 versus 100 Thieves, where they almost got eliminated, but they still won 16-14. It was Banned versus Sen and Lev. And map 9 versus C9. Pretty much what I'm saying, G2 has a lot of time spent making themselves into diamonds from the pressure that Pearl does produce for themselves, but EG had a lot to fight for. And Ye on the Jet, that was going to be the trick up your sleeve, but it simply was not enough between him and Superman. They were dropping a lot of good kills. Leaf, Trent, I mean, they were taking different moments in time. Same thing for Valen, just completely teeing off on all of EG continuously. Leaf, undeniably the series MVP, 59-41 for the kid. They will solidify their ticket going to Masters Toronto, almost missing out on such a cause, not once, but also twice. And EG, of course, will be relegated. We won't be seeing them for quite some time, unfortunate to say, because EG made a hell of a run through that lower bracket. But now we go over towards the Saturday matches. And, well, what happened before G2 was Sentinels going up against MIBR. And as I was saying, MIBR actually lost. So that means that G2 versus MIBR, now it's a lower finals time. Best of 5 on the docket between MIBR and G2. Haven was the map 1 pick. The last time was played versus NRG out of MIBR against them. And MIBR won 13-6. They also lost this to G2 when they played, but the thing that's mostly interesting was the veto process. MIBR got rid of Pearl. It was the only map that MIBR took off of G2 when they faced against each other in a best of 3. Regardless, MIBR still took Haven, but it's still a weird one if you ask me. So in towards the Lotus we go, and I feel like, again, much like the previous conversation, if you're gonna challenge G2 on Lotus, you best come back with some VOD being watched. They have so much on their executes and their rollouts on how to respond back to it, and you just felt like that Aspas just could only do so much throughout the entirety of this map number 2 on the Neon. He did go 30 and 20. He's definitely dropping a lot of kills, but the closest teammate to him was probably Zenom at 21 and 20, but on the Viper, excuse me, only so much you can do. Really good executes coming through here on MIBR for their offense, ended up forcing themselves in towards the site. Valen, not much he could do, so into OT we go. But it only took us 4 total rounds, double OT as it may be. Here comes the execute, the double chow. They knew where Trent was they knew where he was located at. And that means that G2 Esports are going to tie up the series here to the Lotus in towards the map number 3, which was going to be over towards Split. Again, when it comes to G2 on Split, in recency, the only time when they lost was against 100 Thieves on their Sage composition. Not that the Sage had a lot to pander in towards that loss, but still the only loss was to 100 Thieves in recency. So MIBR really did feel like that they were going to be able to win this, given that they did beat 100 Thieves 13-10. Could have been false confidence if you ask me. Split is a map of mere inches of trying to decipher what the team is trying to execute on such a small amount of time through mid continuously. Last little bit of 1v1 for the round win will end up being found, but still, a lot of good breach executes being showcased here, specifically out of Jonah P. He had a really good map here on Split, let me tell you. I mean, for Jonah P, didn't have the sexiest KD ratio in the world, only went 11-12, but those 15 assists off the fault lines, all off of the breach utility, it was certainly felt. And you feel like that a lot of these executes that G2 were able to walk away with certainly do not happen if Jonah P does not find so many good initiations there with the breach. And of course, Jog does get his flowers on the Yoru as he typically does. But still leading as far as the half was concerned. We go in towards the second half of G2 now on the offense, and they were just relentless, just assaulting through aggression. They take it 13-10. Now they got a 2-1 lead. They can smell blood in the water. We go over towards Ascent, and here's where things get weird, right? Ascent is a map that we have seen G2 play continuously, but we got ourselves a new agent, and Jog has been showcasing his flexibility as of late. He's saying that G2 won't let him play anything besides the Yoru. We've seen him on Gecko before, but why not add the Waylay into the mix? It was definitely a sight. I'll say that much. I mean, it ain't Yoru, so I'm definitely still weird seeing Jog on it, but still, it worked out wonderfully for them. I mean, you really didn't need Jog to have a Herculean performance because Valen, your controller player, and Leaf, your Sentinel on the Vice, was just undeniable. I mean, by the end of it, 49 eliminations between Valen and Leaf to be able to take this map number 4 and the subsequent series 3-1 versus MIBR. And now, at worst, G2 Esports are the number 2 team from the Americas region. But most importantly, off of this 3-1 win versus MIBR, they now punch their ticket with Destiny. Grand Finals versus Sentinels. It always feels like that these two teams in the Americas find their way to face each other in a best of 5. That's exactly what went down yesterday on Sunday, and it was a hell of a time. Look, the only advantage you get from Grand Finals is you get the first 2 vetoes. So Sentinels, they got rid of Fracture, and they got rid of Lotus. It's the same exact 2 bans that they had in the last time that these two teams faced in the upper finals, but that was just a best of 3, which meant that Haven got to get picked as map number 1 when G2 banned it in the best of 3. Sentinels are 3-3. G2 and C9 banned Haven, like I was saying, but G2 are 5-2. It was a targeted ban versus Sentinels, but Sentinels thought, with their false confidence, yeah, it's G2, it's Haven. They struggled on the international stage. We watched that at Masters Bangkok. We can chow that on here, right? Wrong. 13-9 is the final scoreline, and oh my gosh, was it ever a fun match to watch. On this Haven map number 1, we had a good old back and forth as far as the first half is concerned, but then once we got over towards the second half, offensive executes galore coming through from G2. Their aggression was looking so good. Trent had a hell of a map number 1. It's one thing to be said about the Tejo, that if you're playing Tejo, and you don't have him on the opposite side, think about all the free damage that Sentinels just passed up. That's exactly what G2 were able to find for themselves, and probably why their executes on offense look so clean as they did. Wonderful stuff coming out from G2. They got a 1-0 lead versus the Sentinels, who are coming in from the winner's bracket side. Over towards Split, map number 2. G2 constantly playing map 2 on Split, but it was their pick. They beat Sentinels 13-5 in the upper semifinals match. It was the only map that they took in that best of 3. And as far as the half is concerned, you couldn't have asked for a more split down the middle, pun absolutely intended. So going over towards the second half, we did have Sentinels attempt for an offense. They won the pistol and then the force soon after. But then once the economy came online for G2 Esports, their executes were just absolutely sublime. Their retakes were even better. There's something about Valen on defense with Omen. His retakes are just so good. He went 13-4 on that one side, and now we go in towards the map number 3, G2 Esports, now up 2-0 in towards the Pearl. For Sentinels, They beat both MIBR and G2. They banded versus Sentinels, but Sentinels, they have NA's number when it comes to this one in scrims. G2 are 7-2. As I said, they did ban it in upper semifinals. The decider map versus EG, they won. Decider map versus 100 Thieves, they also won. They did lose to T1, but EDG, Vitality, and TL all banned this versus Pearl. The reason being is because Leaf on the Vice is very good, but also could be said on the opposite side would be Zelsis. He had himself a great first half. A great map overall between him and John QT. It's tough to say who was trying their best to carry things at the end of the first half. It was a massive 10-2 split. Although G2 had a little bit of a scare coming through from the offensive side, Sentinels were still able to put that map number 3 away, which means that we're guaranteed that map number 4 in towards the ascent we go. And you got to think that if G2, you're looking at this in the picks, Jogamo was probably thinking, it was like, well, I mean, I played Waylay versus MIBR. Why can't I play it versus Sen? It's working right now, right? I don't think Waylay was going to be the biggest difference more than anything. Sentinels just look so deflated coming through this map. Zekin was only able to do so much on the Ascent. He went 20 and 19 at the end of it. John QT on the KO was a non-benefactor at 8 and 16, only 12 assists. Tough when you are KO and you're not finding all of that value with your knives and the information. So at the end of it, G2 Esports, they will upset Sentinels here on paper, but they go back-to-back hoisting up the trophy as your America's #1. They beat Sentinels in a best-of-5 not once, but twice so far in this calendar year as a best-of-5. And again, for G2 Esports, they went from potentially not even beating 100 Thieves to potentially not even beating Evil Geniuses to being the #1 team out of the Americas. Here's that bracket. Here's how everything did shake up. It was an insane bracket and weekend. Sentinels versus G2 in the upper semifinals to beat them 2-1. MIBR besting crew, and then Sentinels just wiping the floor with MIBR. Not how anybody had the cookie crumbling by the end of the weekend, but tough shake for EG. I'm sure that we'll see them back in spades, but Masters Bangkok is on the horizon as far as the top 3 teams from the Americas are concerned. But Chris, why don't you give us a rundown on what's going on in EMEA?
Well, EMEA has started back up again, and PCs received, tested, approved by players, and they're back again on Friday, finishing up the Liquid versus Carmine Corp match. There we go. Carmine Corp are able to pick up the first map, getting back on Icebox, but then it would be Team Liquid picking up the decider map. They would get that win 2-1 and move into first place in Group Omega. Then we would have the decider match for first place on the side of Team Alpha. Our Group Alpha, we would have Team Hairpicks picking up the 2-0 victory over Fnatic. So they're able to get the 5-0 victory, and then they're able to move in the first, Fnatic in second, Navi in third, Team Vitality in fourth for Alpha. Now, Group Omega, as I said, Team Liquid with picking up that win. They were able to clinch the first seed. BBL, Foot, and Carmine Corp will also move on. Now let's take a look at the playoff bracket, which will be starting on Thursday, May the 8th. On the upper bracket, round 1, of course, we did have Heretics and Team Liquid moving on with their first round buys, but then we'll have BBL versus Navi, Fnatic versus Foot, and then the losers will have Carmine Corp and Team Vitality waiting to see who they will face moving on. And as I said, luckily everything has been finalized. We have finally pushed all the tech pauses hopefully behind us, besides barring maybe a few issues, and they will continue with their playoff runs going into later this week.
Definitely happy to see all those PCs being tested. Can't wait to see what EMEA is able to produce as far as their playoffs is concerned. To keep in mind, Pacific is also through their playoff bracket. They're about to be solidifying their top 3 in weeks to come. China is also done with their playoff bracket as well. They have solidified their top 3 from this past week, and you want to make sure that you go towards any sort of news outlet, social media, to be able to follow what's going on in Masters Toronto. We're going to be breaking down a lot of that in this upcoming Thursday's episode. But let's go ahead and put the games on the shelf and kind of dust off the controllers a little bit, and let's go talk a little bit about some news. Again, as far as the news is concerned, this isn't the only esport to be talking about. ALGS just completed its major LAN. New Orleans opened for Apex Legends. They had 160 teams, got all the way down towards the last 20, where we did have Team Falcons able to win it. They got up on match point going in towards the final one, and then they were able to go back-to-back ALGS champion wins. Fantastic stuff to come through from Imperial How, as he did it all in sandals.
And well, let's move on a little bit. We had the PogChamp LOLchess.com tournament, but a bit of a Dan's game moment when it found out that Dr. Lupo was in fact cheating during the tournament. At first he had some allegations, so he dropped out of the tournament saying he wanted to maintain competitive integrity, but eventually he did come out with another post saying that he did in fact cheat. He was using LiveChess.com to use an engine to predict moves and help him get the best moves going forward. A lot more has been said on that. Tell us below what you think about if there should be any repercussions or if you think the apology is enough.
Tough scenes as far as the news is concerned. Make sure that you get along with us in the comments down below. Let us know all your thoughts and what we had potentially missed with the news. We got a little bit more news coming your way this upcoming Wednesday. And of course, tune in for Thursday on anything that we might have missed along the way. But now we're going to take the mouse and keyboard off the shelf. We did have another Counter-Strike tournament happen this weekend because, of course, we did Counter-Strike for crying out loud. We did end up playing through Blast Rivals, and their invitational for the spring had just gone down this past weekend. Here's the group stage. Now everything did go down. Pain Gaming out of LATAM and FlyQuest out of the APAC region. The Aussies will be relegated from Group B, and the Pain Gaming roster out of Latin America did not win a single series, which means that our top three will be solidified going in towards the playoff bracket. They did have Team Falcons as well as Vitality, #1 team from opposite side of the groups. They'll get a first round bye in the single elimination bracket, and that means that our playoff bracket is more than ready to go. Starting off with our quarterfinal matches, we're going to start off with Mouse versus Faze. Faze have a lot of explaining to do, tons of top 6 finishes, and map #1 started off here on Dust 2. This was Faze's pick and probably their best bet to maybe push it towards a map #3. I know, spoilers alert, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I gotta say, for Mouse, ever since losing to the new Falcons, haven't really looked the same, have they? A little bit of hesitancy coming through, but still at the end of it, Mouse came out guns blazing. They took an 8-4 lead at the half. Faze pushed it back hard, but Mouse held their nerve, sealing the map up 13-11. Xerxin was the man of the hour, dropping 26 kills along the way, in towards the map #2. Here we go, Mirage. This was the statement. Mouse dominated from the jump and had themselves a great first half. I mean, Jimmy he just simply could not do any wrong. Every single time that Jimmy was swinging a corner, Jim Hat was walking away more often than not with a kill, an assist. More often than not, could be finding a lot of good damage. His utility was just at an all-time high. Mouse took the first half 10-2. And well, at the end of it, Jimmy racked up a total of 27 kills. He only had 3 deaths, which was an insane 163.2 ADR. Mouse annihilated Faze, and I'm putting that lightly. They punched their ticket towards the semifinals. Jimmy earned the series honors with a total of 44 kills across the 2 maps, just 19 deaths, with the majority of that being in map #1, and 110.3 ADR. Faze, well, they're going to be packing their bags home early, only putting up 2 rounds on Mirage towards one of world's best. Lots of explaining to do for Faze, but still, Mouse, they are a top 3 team at the end of the day. 13-11, 13-2, and now we go over towards the other quarterfinal matchup, Spirit versus Wildcard. And well, Wildcard, I mean, they bested Pain Gaming to at least get some further VLR points, or VRS points, excuse me. Like, I'm trying to grasp at straws here because you're going up against Spirit, and it's a tough one even way you shake it. On Anubis, it did lead 8-4 to half, did Spirit, and the half closed a total out for a 13-7. You saw the bright spots at the beginning for Wildcard. I mean, good executes. They got their guns early, but once Spirit, they start devolving and devising plans, and the executes, especially on Anubis, there's only so many things that you can do. You're not catching these guys by surprise, excuse me. It will be a 13-7 win here on Anubis for Team Spirit. And then Dust 2 was going to be the subsequent second map as far as the series is concerned. And well, if you can tell by the canter in my voice, that's not exactly a good thing to have for yourself. Donk trapped in a corner, Tech 9, doesn't matter. He's going to fight that way out every single time for a nice little 3-piece. So here comes that Dust 2 map #2, the Demolition Derby. Oh, golly, was it just ever so bloody. You could not pick a single moment in time. I mean, just blink right there and Spirit immediately up 10-1. 10-2 was the final half, and well, I'm not gonna lie, Donk went absolutely off. He posted 23 kills, 8 deaths, with a wild 161.3 ADR. Shiro took series MVP with 41 kills and just 11 deaths. Wildcard, they got outmatched. I mean, when you're going up against a top 3, top 4, maybe top 5 team, this is almost what's going to be happening. So Spirit are also going to be punching their tickets to the semifinals alongside Mouse on the opposite side.
And well, with that, we do have our semifinals. Of course, Falcons Vitality already there, so now we have their matchups against them. And we'll start with the Falcons versus Mouse. And well, we've seen this before, and we'll see it again. And again, how is it not exciting when we see Monacy play and these two teams? Map 1 would go to Nuke, and well, it was quite a thrill. And here we have them starting off. So Falcons, though, they come out strong. They want to show that they had the advantage, and they would. First half, they would take it 7-5. And again, this is exactly what we've been seeing from Falcons after Monacy has joined. But again, Malice won't go quietly. They would start forcing their way back into the game, and eventually they would help lead it to overtime. But again, this is Falcons we're talking about, and they've looked really good, and in the end, they would clutch it out 16-14. Look at them here. You know, this is it. They're forcing it into overtime here, but again, this is a Falcons that we can never put down. Magic's, though, actually coming out big in this game. Coming out 23 kills, 17 deaths, 96 ADRs. Exactly what we are needing from the whole entire team if they wanted to push to the grand finals. Here we are, finally overtime. Look at this final round. This is where they are getting that defuse at the end. Monacy putting in the work. Not only can get the kills, but the defense as well. But let's move on to map number 2 here. Dust 2. And this time Falcons said, well, we went to overtime 1, we're not going to go into number 2. This was all Falcons. They came out guns a-blazing, just as those dual elites are here, and they would go into this first half saying, we're going to put down the pain to Mals, and they would take the first half 10-2. That's right, 10-2. Only 2 rounds for Mals in this first half after such a good map number 1, but this is exactly what we're looking for. Look at that off by Monacy. On the money once again, and well, they wouldn't lit up there. Again, they would look back, or Mals would get back a couple rounds. They would bring it back, so it would be 13-6. They would get the 4 rounds needed, but Monacy lights out on all these kills. This is exactly what they picked him up to do, and he's just been doing it in spades. He would go earn the MVP for the series, 46 kills, only 25 deaths, and an 89.2 ADR. Falcons would soar on to the grand finals, and Mals taking an exit. Now, let's move on. Vitality versus Spirit. Again, we've seen it before, and we'll probably see it again, but Vitality is showcasing why they are the best team in Counter-Strike right now. On Mirage, Vitality flexed their muscles. They led 11-1 in the first half. Just crazy numbers being put up by them. They want to continue steamrolling, and they would just continue steamrolling. They would keep cruising. Second half, we'd see a little bit better out of Spirit here. They would end up getting 7 rounds. But again, when you only need to win 2 rounds for a team like Vitality, this is nothing. They would go ahead and win this map 13-8. Zaiwu was untouchable, 25 kills, only 13 deaths, and a 123 ADR. And that's exactly what you're expecting out of probably one of the best players, if not the best player in Counter-Strike right now. And here it goes, just exactly what they need. They would take the map number 1, and we move on to map number 2, going into Nuke, and it was a much better showing by Spirit. They would go in, have a much better first half. They would only limit to 7 for Vitality, so Vitality would still be up going in 7-5, but it was much better showing. Of course, it's not as bad as number 1, but again, when you are playing against a team such as Vitality, you have to do better. You have to start winning these halves. Vitality would end up winning 13-9. Zaiwu at the end of the series, 41-30. 94 ADR, just such a great job by him, and leading that into going into the grand finals. Once again, we would see Falcons versus Vitality.
I mean, where Malice has been playing Vitality so close in grand finals and other matches, they have just not been able to beat both Falcons and Vitality. Same for Spirit as of late. So like Chris was saying, we got ourselves the grand finals, and it is slated to be a banger. Falcons taking on Team Vitality 2. Electric Boogaloo, let's get it on, shall we? In this best of 5 grand finals, map 1 was on Inferno. And if you're unfamiliar going in towards this one, Vitality got themselves a little bit of a record going on this map. 12 in a row that they have currently won on Inferno through a multitude of different tournaments, and well, they haven't lost here since February, and no team has even hit double-digit rounds against them. Certainly Falcons wouldn't be the first team to do that, right? Nah, of course not, but they definitely rewrote the script after a 6-6 tie at the half. Monacy then took absolutely over. You asked why Falcons paid the big dollars for this young boy? That's exactly why. That man is accurate as all get out. It's not just the operator, it's also with the pistols, it's also with the rifles as well. Monacy was leading the Falcons to a 13-9 upset at the end of it. It was a close haywire of a match, even trying to play with a lot of different audio cues. It was wonderfully done at the end. I mean, Kixon with Team Falcons was leading this team ever so wonderfully. Nico, Modesty, making sure that they led the way for their team. This streak has been broken.
And well, on to Dust 2, and this is Falcons' pick. They would try to carry the momentum, but Vitality was upset. They clapped back at Falcons with this. This is where it starts, and well, you know, when you come in, you go into your map, you expect Falcons, they need to do a little bit better. 9-3 at the half, go into it, they are unrelenting. Once again, look at this, 12-6, and they're just gonna end it. It doesn't matter to them. Saiwu, once again, coming up big, 17 kills, only 10 deaths.
And towards map number 3 we go for Train, and this one was definitely an interesting one. We don't really see these two teams play Train all too much specifically, but still, there's only so many map modes to go around, and Falcons, this one might have to go back to the drawing board. This was Vitality's pick at the end of the day, and you at least had that buffer from the Dust 2, or from the Inferno, excuse me, but still Vitality simply could not lose in many different rounds. 13-6 after a 7-5 halftime. Flame Z was the difference maker. He posted a total of 20 kills, 13 deaths, and 118.5 ADR. Vitality were able to take at least a 2-1 lead, playing out this map mode ever so wonderfully. Their post plants, that much better. Team Falcons might have had a couple of bright spots, but you give Vitality an inch, they'll turn into a French-sized Walmart and walk away with another map win. And now they can definitely feel where they have been before, and that is up on championship point. Last few moments coming through from this game. Nice little spray from Apex for First Blood. And from there, you should be able to depict where the rest of the information is located at. Just swarm the site, stop the bomb from being planted. Apex letting them know.
And on to map number 4, Mirage, and Falcons would come out swinging. They would show why it's their pick, and going into the half, they would lead 9-3. And this is exactly what you want to do going up against a team like Vitality. You need to come back, you want to get it to that map 5, and they would start in doing such a good job. But again, if you give Vitality an inch, as Andy says, they will take it to a French-sized Walmart, and they brought it back. They would end up going into overtime after winning 9 straight rounds. That's right, 9 straight rounds after going down 9-3 in the first half. And especially with Modesty looking so on point, you maybe didn't think it was possible. I thought Falcons were just gonna run away with this, but again, you can never count Vitality out. They would come back, go into overtime, and eventually it would be Falcons who would win. Modesty dropped a monstrous, though, 35 kills. He put this team on his back for this game. He wanted to make sure that they went into the finals, and they wanted to go all the way. They would eventually get the overtime win, 16-14. But again, when you give Vitality so much momentum, even if they lose, they are coming back. Look at this. They're trying to get here. So many clutch diffuses. And, well, this is just crazy. Let's get on to map number 5.
That shot from Odyssey is just insane. What even is that angle? How do you even know he's there? I don't understand it, but we got ourselves a map 5 on Nuke. The decider, of course, Vitality. They have been to so many map 5s in the past, what, like 60 days or so, whether that's against Mals, Falcons, you name it. They have been tested, they have bled, but will they finally lose a best of 5 in a grand finals at that? I don't know. Vitality were edging ahead at the 7-5 half, though, towards the tail end. Apex, that shots coming through sets up Rops to at least hold this angle with the AK. Won't be good enough. Falcons gonna be able to win out at least a handful of more rounds, but still, they turned up the heat. Rops was the hero with 24 kills, 10 deaths, 114.2 ADR. Vitality, they take the series 3-2 by winning this last few moments here. In the final moments, 13-8. Apex standing up, screaming. I'd say the crowd went roaring, but it was Apex doing it all throughout the entirety of the series. Saiwu, the undeniable MVP, hoisting the trophy, racked up 90 kills, 66 deaths, and an 82.4 ADR across the entirety of the epic showdown. Vitality, still on top of the world. And Falcons, they've only been together for such a short amount of time, so you almost have to feel that after a certain amount of time, they might be able to get the better of the world's #1, but that time is not right now. Falcons, Vitality, they won out the groups. They did have that first round bye. They took care of Malice and Spirit respectively in a 2-0 fashion. Got tested as far as that grand finals is concerned, did both of our two teams, but still, a wonderful tournament to say the least. It was a jam-packed weekend.
It really was, and especially the ending to that, 3-2. Again, getting so close, but no one has been able to take the Vitality just yet. We'll have to see what next team might be able to do it. If it's Falcons, maybe it's Spirit, but again, Vitality looking strong, and we love seeing them play.
Well, it's Counter-Strike, so we won't be waiting for too much longer. Make sure that you tune in this upcoming Thursday and Wednesday as well for all your news and the breakdown for the upcoming weekend. This has been Today in Esports.